This hallway at the Centennial Arts Center tells a story of a public pool that was here from 1932 to 1961. It was hugely popular on those hot summer Saturdays, but in a time of segregation, the pool wasn't for everyone.
There are people still alive today. Because of the color of their skin, they could not come here to go swimming.
Supervisor of Visual Arts Joshua Wagner knows the story well, how a small group of black students were denied from swimming in this pool on a day in 1961. Soon after, the newspaper said this.
Within 2 days, all 21 pools around the city were shut down.
Wagner says it was from the city leaders' fear of the desegregation of the pools going through the courts.
The pool closed for reasons that were just totally unnecessary.
How you doing? My name is Antonio. My page is Unapologetically Black ADOS. I ask that you like and subscribe to the page. I want you to understand why I am so sure that democracy is about to fall in America is because you have to know the nature of white people. The nature of white people is that they would rather destroy something than to see blacks have any form of advancement. And all you have to do is pick up a history book and pay attention. White people who can't take the sun, right? Sunburns, all this, who was going to the swimming pools, the public swimming pools, prior to any integration rules passed. When integration was passed for the swimming pools, they shut down swimming pools throughout the country. So white people would rather sacrifice not swimming at all rather than allow you to have the right to swim.
To us by phone, Dr. Augustus Bankhead was teaching at TSU during a time that Nashville was changing, seeing students fight for the desegregation of their city. 5 years after the pool's closing, Bankhead remembers standing at the gate surrounding it.
It never reopened. I just felt the desire, need, whatever, to say something.
So we did. Writing a letter to the editor for the Nashville Tennessean paper in July 1966. Among his lines is this: "Let it stand as a reminder that in this decade, we were not ready to accept men as men." As part of the Centennial Arts Center's 50-year anniversary, a historical marker will be unveiled next month, telling the story of the pool that used to be here and the lessons a city learned.
And that's a part of the human condition. But it doesn't mean that we don't always work at improving the situation.
I'm Forrest Sanders, News Channel 5.
Them shutting down the pools just to prevent the blacks from not being able to swim in that pool is just an example of how far or how much white people despise us. They're willing to cut off their nose to spite their face when it comes to blacks. They're willing to destroy this country.
Swim, but a race riot erupted at Fairground Park when whites reacted violently to blacks on the first day of integration at the swimming pool.
5 on Your Side's Art Holiday reports on a pivotal moment in St. Louis history.
Pools are usually where you go to cool off. But on June 21st, 1949, the heat was on the first day blacks were allowed into municipal pools in St. Louis.
2 days before in Webster Groves, they opened this public swimming pool and denied blacks admission. So a reporter asked Mr. O'Toole, who was the Commissioner of Parks and Recreation, are you going to allow blacks to enter the swimming pools on opening day? And he said, well, they have a right to enter those pools just like anybody else.
1949 St. Louis, like much of the nation, was grappling with segregation and the growing civil rights movement. There were protests about white-only lunch counters, segregated schools, and department stores. Black kids just wanted to swim, and when 30 to 40 showed up at the Fairground Park pool,
there was no planning, there was no policy.
All hell broke loose. White youngsters outside the fence shouted threats and obscenities, the prelude to violence.
Thousands of white people gathered in the park, and there were only a handful of black people. So you can imagine how terrifying that was.
News accounts indicate that it took over 400 police officers more than 12 hours to restore order after whites attacked blacks in Fairground Park.
Not guns, but baseball bats, bricks, pipes, and they were attacking blacks with these weapons that they had.
Less than 2 weeks later, Life magazine reported St. Louis's racial strife to the nation.
This event attracted national and international attention.
To understand is that your humanity had to be legislated to white people. White people could not see your humanity. So you have to understand they have a different illness. They are uncivil people as a collective. So when a group of people do not see your humanity, what would make you think they want to share a nation with you, or what would make you think they okay with you governing a nation that they feels belongs to you? This is why Europeans is willing to destroy America rather than to see a rise in black Americans.
In the riot, but the event shook St. Louis. The St. Louis mayor immediately resegregated all city pools. NAACP President Robert Witherspoon was among those who fought back. A year later, a federal judge ordered St. Louis swimming pools open to all. It was a pivotal moment in St. Louis's racial history.
We kind of ignored the racial problems that we had here in St. Louis. But with the Fairgrounds Park race riot, you couldn't ignore it anymore.
The sister said was the key point. The only reason why we've been having racial harmony in America is because black people have been accepting their economic oppression. Black people have been accepting their social oppression. That is the only reason why we haven't had any social or racial issues in America, is because black people have accepted it. You have suffered in silence. It's time to stop suffering in silence. It's time to speak up. It's time to demand for what's yours. It's time to stand up for your children and the generations to.
Moore says that historians believe this pivotal event in St. Louis history was a wake-up call that forced city leaders to examine their policies. The Fairground Park riot is documented at the #1 in Civil Rights exhibit at the Missouri History Museum. KSTK is a media sponsor of that exhibit. And many whites boycotted that swimming pool after the race riot, and that historic pool closed in 1955.
It's just amazing. 400 police officers, and I think you said it took 24 hours for the thing to stop?
There were attacks that day and several days afterwards.
Wow.
Art, thank you.
Just like that event was a wake-up call about the racist issues in America, the election of Obama was a wake-up call to white supremacists everywhere that they felt that they was losing power. Just like to black people, the election of Obama should be a wake-up call to black Americans that Europeans have not changed their ways or their viewpoints about you. The election of Trump should be a wake-up call to you to understand your democracy at risk, and white people are willing to cut off their nose to spite their face. They are willing to surrender their democratic rights in order to prevent you from having them. You have to understand, when America imposed poll taxes, most white Americans could not afford those poll taxes. They could only vote at the mercy of a white beneficiary. Either the elected official or people who wanted that elected official in power would give you a receipt, and that receipt would allow you to say that you paid the amount of money necessary to vote. Yeah, so you have to understand that they blocked us and supported the blocking of voting rights for all people in order to prevent blacks from voting. They hindered their own voting rights. So we have to understand they are willing to give up American democracy rather than see black people gain any control or power or any form of equality within America.